Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 206 of the second series of the Cognitive Podcast, and you're probably hearing this on November 2nd, 2024. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment in the show notes at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Don't forget the K in front of the knit and cognitive. Or you can comment on our group on Ravelry, where there is a thread for each episode. In the Warm Thanks Department, Sustainable Living and her spouse, thank you for that lovely posting about how we had a timely strategy. The irony of that is every time I think, this isn't much of a strategy, someone writes in and says that. It really goes to show that in my job, we kind of take things for granted sometimes. We don't realize that you all don't spend all day, every day working on this stuff or thinking about this stuff, whereas it literally is something I work with 6 to 8 hours a day on weekdays, In the meantime, you will find under the Warm Thanks Department here in the notes, a link for Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, the one we just had. I have not yet had a chance to do the information thread for CFR 11, which is dated for October 11th, 2025, so mark your calendars. Sign-ups should start in August of 2025. What is on my hooks and needles? Well, finished. Hooray! You may remember that I am trying to clear out my study. And so I'm sort of doing this one thing at a time on the desks and tables and all that, or the floor. And this led to me taking the huge pile of skirting fabric, well, not so huge, that was sitting on my love seat out into the living room and setting it up on the chair of skirts about to happen. And so I did finish another one of those. This is my brown faux suede skirt, or doe suede, or I think they do call this microfiber. I'm not sure if they're the exact same thing. At any rate, boy, this stuff makes a great full circle skirt. I have to tell you, this always blows me away. I remember the first time I made one 30 years ago, and it was in this beautiful soft rose color, which is what made me take the risk. Because let me tell you, the back of the pattern package did not suggest this material. But it was on sale at the Joann's in Moscow, Idaho, and I just could not stand how pretty that pink was. So anyway, that was my first one. And I remember then trying it on the first time and being astonished at how wonderful and comfortable it is to wear. And you think all sorts of things like it won't be breathable or what if it stains and all that stuff. But this stuff washes very well. I have no idea what the base fabric is. If it's a cotton polyester blend of some sort, I have no idea. But the drape is insanely pretty. And the wearability is great. I'm still wearing, I think I have the green one left. I believe I had a green, a blue, and that pink. I may still have the blue one, actually. At any rate, I need to go through and look at them because their waistbands are way too big. I need to pull the elastic out and resize them because they're the same size as the ones I'm making now. I just put bigger waistbands on them with the elastic. There's a lot of forgiveness in this pattern's waistband. At any rate, there I am wearing it. And I will say, yes, one thing I did this time that I didn't do for the dragonfly skirt that I finished last week, I cut the elastic 1 inch shorter. So instead of a 33-inch elastic waist, I'm using a 32-inch. Much, much better. And the important thing is when you make these, there is a hole in the waistband that faces inward, and that's where you thread the elastic through, and then you're supposed to hand sew that shut. Newsflash, I never hand sew that thing shut. I'm really grateful because now Every time I grow or I shrink, I can just resize the elastic. I also finished the Halloween Woobles from 2023. These were issued by the Woobles Company in 2023. And I actually didn't do all of them. There was a little mini broom and a mini witch's cape. And I just thought both of them were kind of dumb, and I didn't see a reason to make them. So you can see a picture of most of them sitting there together. They're all around the cauldron. I think I'm missing the pumpkin costume on the penguin and the candy corn, but I think everybody else is there. But I declared those finished and said, I'm not going to do any more of the Halloween Woobles. Now I'm going to move on to the Advent Woobles, I suspect. There are 2 Woobles Advent calendars, one for 23 and one for 24. Yeah, I have the patterns. What do you want me to tell you? And there's a group of us that are actively trading with each other on Reddit for all sorts of patterns, not just Woobles. I cannot tell you how my crocheting and even some of my knitting collections have exploded recently. We're all just trading stuff. It's wonderful. So I'm looking at the 2023 Advent calendar. The 2024 Advent calendar, it's really cool. They really listened to feedback from the 2023 calendar of what people liked and didn't like. In the 23 calendar, there is a tree, a Christmas tree. It has no face. It came in, I think, 2 parts, maybe 3 parts. And you made each part on a separate day, and then you hooked them together, I guess. This year, they reissued that as Douglas the fir tree, and he's got a face. So you can get that pattern. I suspect it's the same as the bits of Christmas tree from last year. But this year, they did some really cute stuff. And the box is adorable, and it folds into a little cabin. It's just a very, very clever kit. And they cut the price. The price on the 2024 Advent calendar, by Woobles standards, is very low, I must say. We all figured they were going to do another $200 box. Last year, I think it was $250. I'm sorry, there was no way it was worth it. But this year, that was actually a pretty smart box. So I haven't ordered one, but I'm interested in doing some of the larger animals from it. There's a cardinal that is really adorable that I want to do. Last year, there was a snowman, I think. He was a mini, I think. There might be a full-size snowman now. But there was an elf and there was a Santa Claus. They still haven't kicked out a Mrs. Santa Claus. There are a couple fan-made versions, including my own out there. So I am heading towards the Advent Woobles. In the meantime, in progress, the Stash Toss is very happy. 43 in versus 53 out. That's about to go up because I'm making that rug I told you about last episode. And I really, really got this together and I love it. It's now, well, frankly, the original is gone. I ripped it back completely, which was a little scary with that sticky wool, but I managed it. I went to the Q-hook as I threatened, and I added 3 strands of a size 4 acrylic yarn. And as I told you last time, this is modeled after the rug I made in acrylic and wool that I knitted that has really retained its shape beautifully. Well, this is the same logic, except I hooked it because you get a much thicker rug, frankly, when you crochet it. The knitted rug is very pretty, but as you can see in the picture, my crocheted rug is very pretty too. And the 3 strands of acrylic, well, the wool in the middle of this is the super bulky Alessandra Filati that was left over. And I really didn't have any place to send it. Everybody left it behind at CFRX. So I said, you know what? It's going to be a rug. And it's making a beautiful rug. And against that, I held a strand of a very silvery blue, closer to silver than blue, and a medium blue, and a purple, like a medium purple, not a dark purple. Oh, it looks really good. I'm really happy. And it's also nice to be getting through those big skeins. These are like Pound of Love skeins or Karen Simply Softs or something. Really big skeins of the acrylic. It's nice to see those guys going away too. So I am very close to finish that. I may finish it tonight after I record this, in fact. That's insanely, insanely satisfying. So that is the very pretty rug there. The only other thing I've done any action on, I've done a little bit on the side of the 10 square bag. That is just a lot of single crochet gone up the side because I'm using such big squares. And I plan to line that with a fabric-y bag, like a cheap fabric bag that I got at one of my many yarn events. I learned that from Loretta 1031, and it's such a great idea. So I'm really looking forward to that, but I haven't been working on it a lot. I did work on the Yule socks. I've been doing that as my sort of background knitting every time I'm talking to somebody on the phone or something. They're going very slowly, and you can see they're probably meant to be stripy. There's a picture of sock number 1. I am about, 7 rows from starting the toe on that one. So I'm slowly making my way through sock number 1. But most of the work this week, to be honest, was on the sewing on the skirt. The other thing, to add the picture here, I don't see it in my notes, was I started taking those strips that I made last year. I don't know if you remember this, but I took all my leftover fabrics that I could locate, and I piled them up, ironed them out, washed them and all that, and then I started cutting them into 2.5-inch strips, saying I'm going to use this for strip quilting, for scrap quilting. Well, this week I started working on them, and I started making the log cabin squares. And I realized that I used to do log cabins in 1.5-inch strips, so that when you did the seam allowances, you came down to 1 inch. So these squares are bigger. Instead of being 6-inch squares, they're 9.5 inches. I love them. I think as I record this, I've got 6 of them done. I've made mistakes on them. I'm learning a lot as I go. Tonight was sort of sewing night, where I wanted to spend this weekend cutting out the neck skirts and recutting some of the ones. I was going to make into full circles, and I don't like the lay of the fabric. I don't like the designs, the way the patterns are going, and it was very foolish of me. I just wasn't being careful enough. So I'm going to recut them into half circles, and that looks like it's going to work. So what did I do? Well, I realized I was running out of bobbin thread. So tonight I was making the quilt blocks because I was trying to use up the thread on the spool, on the commercial spool that I'm using for the needle, as opposed to the bobbin below the needle. And I have 2 of those that are almost finished now. So I was trying to use those up and just empty those spools of thread and then move on to another one before I started winding bobbins. Had to give that up. So now I've got 2 almost finished spools of thread with dark thread. But I did sit down tonight and just wind all my bobbins. Those of you who sew, you feel this, don't you? That what I would tell you as a seamstress is there's a great thing you can do, and that is get all the bobbins you can. Seriously, all you can find that fit your machine. That's not easy because the machine I have is no longer made, the white. But they're out there if you know where to look. Get all your bobbins and wind them. And wind 1,000,000 of them. And wind them in basically black or navy blue or white. And just wind up a ton of those puppies and put them to the side so that when you're working on projects, you don't have to stop and keep winding bobbins. Don't wind your bobbins 1 bobbin at a time. So tonight I sat down and I wound 6 bobbins, and I am a much happier person as a result. And that's how I finished the brown faux suede skirt that I had already hemmed it once. And if you know full circle skirts, you know their hems are huge. I always hem my full circle skirts twice because I don't want to rip them out accidentally if I accidentally step on them. So that's kind of the protection. At any rate, so that is my little piece of wisdom for the evening, that please, when you are doing bobbins, get a lot of bobbins and wind them all. My only regret is that I don't have 30 bobbins. I would have just gone through winding all of them. Because of one thing that really annoys me, I'm puttering right along on a skirt or a dress, and I run out of bobbin thread, and I've got to stop and load a bobbin if I don't have one ready to go. So periodically, it is worth it to just stop, pull out your manual, and really look at how you do it, how you wind the bobbin, make sure you're doing it right, because it'll save you a world of trouble if you don't guess, and just wind your bloomin' bobbins. I haven't worked on anything else this week, but I'm pretty happy because it's getting cold tomorrow, and I have 2 new skirts that I can wear. At this point, when I walk in my closet, I've got this huge wardrobe of skirts. I am so happy. I have winter skirts with snowflakes and Christmassy skirts with snowflakes. I think that's all I've got for Christmas. I don't think I've made anything particularly Christmassy. I feel like there's one more and I'm forgetting it and I should look. I got a bunch of Halloween skirts, which makes me extremely happy. I've got yellow skirts, orange skirts, blue skirts, green skirts, black skirts, brown skirts now. It's wonderful. Anything I'm in the mood for, I have a skirt for it. And most of all, I've got skirts with black cats on them. That just makes my little Minerva-loving heart happy. So I haven't worked on anything else. Dizzy Blondes, I realize, as soon as these windstorms let up, I am going to start working my way through my fiber, because I realize I have a lot of filled bobbins here that I would like to just ply, and then I'd start getting rid of the rest of my fiber. I'm really enjoying that. I love my electric wheels, and I really like making sweaters out of my homemade yarn. So that's hopefully another project that will clear a lot of stuff out of the study as well. I cannot tell you, in this bigger project of clearing out my study, my studio, it's been so cool because I'm finding all this stuff that was buried. This has been an amazing experience, just relocating things that were lost and also moving things on, like moving on the squares that I crocheted into the 10 square bag and moving the skirts on into finished skirts, that sort of thing. It is really exciting to do the quilting blocks. I have a huge, I think it's like a 20-gallon tub of strips. I am so excited to be working through that. That is the coolest thing, to just have it all ready to go and start throwing it into blocks. All right, stop. On to the strategy. Well, this kind of relates to talking about the positive headset. And what this one is I started thinking about the opposite, negative headset. And why do people do negative headset? And it's interesting because if you go on the internet, as one friend was pointing out to me this morning, you will find all these rather, shall we say, unfact-based therapists talking about how if your mommy was a narcissist, you have this or you do that. And they're really oversimplifying a lot of stuff. And because I'm a psychologist and I am a physiological psychologist by training and inclination, I don't look at it that way. I don't think you just say your traits show that your parents were X. I mean, that's true to some extent, sure. But I think you just can't keep doing that. I think that to keep looking over your shoulder like that so you can blame mommy and daddy, what is the point of that? It might give you a certain amount of peace, but I don't think it's really helping you solve the problem. I think the only way to have a positive headset, if you have a negative headset, is essentially to do the distress tolerance skills, thought substituting in some form. That is, accepts, ACCEPTS, and improve, IMPROVE. So, distract yourself with the accepts skills or handle painful moments with the improve skills. And at the base of all of that is radical acceptance. This is what it is, and my problems are my problems no matter how I look at them. I can be depressed, I can be not depressed, but my problems are still there. The only question that counts is, how do I want to handle these things? And then learning how to, because you may never have gotten those skills even if you had good parents. Having said this, so I was thinking about all that today, and I was thinking about the election in the U.S., because we all are. I mean, America is really very tense right now because of this. And I was thinking that you've got two opponents, and one opponent works on how bad everything is and how he's going to get all those bad people. He's going to punish them. And the other opponent is working on how problematic things are, how challenging things are, and she is saying, we are going to fix that. We are going to go to the source and fix that. The one person who's focused on how we're going to get them and we're going to punish them is focused on immigrants and basically the poor. People on disability, people on welfare, people on Social Security. Whereas the other candidate who's saying we're going to fix things is focused on the oligarchy, on the wealthy who are basically crushing the middle class. That's what we have. The interesting thing about all that as a psychologist is everybody wants to be happy. But as I was listening to one neurologists explain it, it is really easy to get people to obsess with fear. That humans are always programming themselves to be safe. All mammals are. That's a normal enough thing. And so when you appeal to lack of safety with a mammal, you get a lot of response. And I could go on about that for years in dogs and horses and llamas. That's who I've worked with, and cats. But you can see it in the American election, that what is essentially going on is one party is doing that. And what they've done is create this huge amount of people who are afraid to look away. They're afraid. They must stare at the bad things because that will somehow protect them from being harmed. And the interesting thing about that as a psychologist is you can never use that to be happy. Staring at the bad will never make you happy. And when you get down to it, what are we all trying to do? We just want to be happy. And when I say happy, I don't mean ecstatic. I don't mean the happiness you get when you get to travel on a yacht to the Maldives when you've never done anything like this before, and every day is a new revelation, or you're on vacation in Fiji or Hawaii, and every day is something you've never seen and all that. That's a rare happiness. If that happens every day, you lose interest in it. You get bored. But I'm talking about happiness at the level of day-to-day contentment and satisfaction, a feeling of safety and well-being that pervades your life. And of course, this is why we craft. Odd but true. That when you craft, as I talked about previously, you are soothing your amygdala. You're turning off your alarm system. This is in the limbic system in the core of your brain. It's your smoke alarm. Okay, if your smoke alarm is going off, if your amygdala is activated, of course, you have to look at the source. You have to stare at the thing that is activating your amygdala. You're scared. And so you're going to keep staring at it. So if my house is on fire and I'm trying to get into it and rescue my dog, for example, I'm going to locate first where the fire is. And sooner or later, I'm going to look away to grab the dog, but I'm going to have to focus on where the fire is, where the danger is as I exit the house with my dog in my arms. This was a positive story. We're not here to terrorize you. In other words, when we're in danger, we stare at the source of the danger. We watch it carefully. And so the current election, that's what's going on. One side is working hard to convince us all that we're in constant danger and we must watch the danger. Now, the thing about that is, of course, negative headset. What is that doing to you biologically? Well, it's making you release stress hormones into your blood. And what do? Why, they corrode your cardiovascular system. If you are too stressed, you're going to have a heart attack or you're going to have a stroke. Now, this takes a long time, typically. That most humans, this is like a 30-year process. We have really tough cardiovascular systems by and large, assuming we don't have any congenital issue. So, I had all these friends when I was in my 20s who went to work on the stock market. They're all dead now. Yes, they are. And they all died of the same thing. I had a friend who worked as a legal secretary for a very high-powered firm. You guessed it, dropped dead when she was 59, Easter Sunday, walking down the street in Philadelphia. I had a friend who didn't get tenure, and he's stressed, heart condition in his 30s, dead in his 50s. This is what stress does to you. So interestingly enough, yes, I just said it, let's just spell it out. One party in America is literally trying to kill us. Now, they don't take responsibility for that because they're anti-education. They don't even know they're doing it. Gee, why would we want to be educated? That's a whole other thing. Don't get me started. But this literally is the price of negative headset. But I really respect the party that is presenting itself as the happy warriors. This is a thing that current President Biden started years ago. He was always the happy warrior. That he was going to be cheerful and pleasant, he was going to be nice to people, he was going to reach across the aisle, that is, have contact with the opposite party, but he was going to fight for what he believed in. And I think the happy warrior is the only choice we get as humans, physiologically. if we keep identifying fears and staring at the fears, then it becomes easy to get paralyzed, like you're watching a snake about to strike. After all, fight or flight or freeze. And I think that is a very dangerous way to look at the world, that there has to be the attempt to have positive headset. And it's weird to watch this play out on a national political level in my home country. It is a very strange thing to see this playing out. But I will tell you, when you look at governments that have collapsed, they have used fear. They have tried to get people into the negative headset. You will do what we say, or we will kill you. You are going to fail if you don't do what we say. We are the only hope. You don't know what you want, etc. So when I talk about the positive headset, I have heard over and over again, since I became a cognitive behavioral therapist, I have heard over and over again, well, you're just embracing this brainless positivity. Oh, no, I'm not. I am perfectly capable of recognizing what that one side is doing to my native country. And I'm really unhappy about it. And we've done this over and over. Ask the people whose ancestors came over as slaves about it. Ask the indigenous people about it. We have created fear and we have terrorized people into staring at the fear and trying to stomp out the fear. We have seen this before. We saw it in Nazi Germany. You can do this to an entire country. You can do this to an entire race, an entire religion. This is the absolute terror of the negative headset. I am not kidding you when I tell you, you have to look at your problems as challenges that you can rise to. You have to keep going. The idea that this is a brainless optimism is simply based in a lack of understanding of human physiology and how human psychology relates to it. In short, the bad will never give you the happy. You get the happy, you have to look for the happy and pursue the happy. And again, it comes back to the we mentality, not the me mentality. If you are helping your community, if everybody is safe and taken care of, and greed is not tolerated, then you feel safe and taken care of, and you know when things go wrong, there's always going to be a support in place. But if you're only looking out for number one, if it's just all about me, and you're not thinking of the community, the bad is never going to give you the happy. Believing that everybody but you is bad is never going to give you happiness. Literature and art, our stories, our mythologies, they are full of it. It's about time we started listening. The positive headset is not brainless optimism. You cannot be happy when you focus on the bad. Having said all that, let's go to our shoot. Well, we did the Monster Dash. The Monster Dash? Okay, that's me trying to pretend to sing the Monster Mash. It was a lot of fun. First off, it went off at 7:30 in the morning, and it went very, very well. And I'll come back to that in something I really like. But the really upfront news, beloved son came in second in the 5K overall, and he got that medal, and then he got the best costume medal, which is really great because I don't have a picture of his costume. He just wore a green tracksuit, but he had the numbers 4, 5, 6 on his upper left chest. This is from the Netflix series Squid Game, where, you know, it was kind of like the Hunger Games, except it was adults, they're volunteers, and they understand they die if they don't win, the ultimate reality show. When we got this costume, he was just fascinated with it. I think he's only seen one episode. I think my husband even felt it was too violent. Okay, so I'm in the costume store last week, and I was going to wear a skirt and a tail. That was what I was going for, so I figured probably a black cat. I looked at Scooby-Doo, but you had to buy the brown dress to make it obvious what you were doing. And I said, no, I don't want the brown dress. If I could get a brown tutu, like a brown running skirt, I would do that. Couldn't get one. So I ended up with the black cat. So there you can see me in my black cat outfit. tail and all. My ears had flashies in them. I thought this was a pretty great costume. I'm running down the racetrack, the race trail. People behind me are going, oh my God, that's so great. She's got a tail. That's so funny. Okay. I was pretty proud of myself. I thought I had the best costume there. Meanwhile, my son in his green tracksuit, he could have put any numbers he wanted. It came with a full set on the chest of his tracksuit. My husband last week said, what is the number of the guy who wins, who survives? 4, 5, 6. My husband said, look, any other number is just bad luck. Put 4, 5, 6 on your shirt. My husband is not particularly superstitious. I found this strange. Okay, so my son did not tell me, but he had 2 other Halloween functions to wear this to. So he went to his track club's meeting. Nobody knew what he was. He went to his school's party. Nobody knew what he was. I was so sorry for him. I thought, well, it's going to be tough for him when I take that black cat costume out there and wow everybody. We get to the finish line. The woman handing out the medals looks at him and says, oh, I didn't give out the best costume medal. And then she looks at him and she goes, oh my gosh, wait, that's that show, Squid Games. That number on your chest. My son says proudly, that's the guy who won. She gives him best costume. I'm standing there feebly going, look at my tail. Look at my flashy ears. He won because she recognized his costume. So that was really cool. I had to laugh because I thought, you got it. Because I had a good costume, but he had a clever costume. I have to admit, even I would agree clever should win. She got it. He got the prize. But he came second, too. He was smoking. You should have seen that kid. I got smoked, man. I'm running down the trail. He started a little ahead of me, so I didn't pay much attention. But it was basically, the race went in quarters. He went a quarter of the way under a bridge, another quarter under another bridge, and right after that bridge, you turned around, came back. Same trail. So I'm heading for the first bridge, and I'm seeing all these people passing me. They're really cooking. And I went fast. That first mile, I went really fast. It was the same first mile, same first quarter, as we had on the Be the Light 5K, which I did in 10 minutes that night, which really shocked me. I wasn't that fast yesterday, but I went down it in 11 minutes. I was pretty shocked that my first mile was an 11-minute mile because I didn't think I was going that fast. Yeah, well, you know who was going faster? Just before I hit the first bridge, guess who's coming back? He's already been to the second bridge, turned around, and come back and gone under the first bridge again. Yeah, Junior, he smoked me, man. I was just watching him scorch the asphalt as he whizzed by me with, streaming clouds of glory, as the poem says. He was amazing. He was doing 8-something minute miles. I didn't figure it out. I don't remember what his time was. I'll have to look in the results. But I did okay, considering that when I run my trail runs, I'm usually doing like 18-minute miles, 17 if I'm really cooking. And in the last race I did, the San Jose 5K, the rock and roll, I believe I did 13 minutes, and I want to say 54 seconds. I did slightly better than I did in the Be the Light. Yeah, well, I was smoking. I did it in 13 minutes and 8 seconds per mile. And that first mile was 11 minutes. So obviously I slowed down on the uphill coming back. It was a very gradual downhill and a very gradual uphill on the way back. And I have to say there was nothing unpleasant about it. You didn't feel like you were struggling up a hill for the second half of this. So I'm really happy because I did mine in 40 minutes and 59 seconds. He did his in 25 minutes, something like that. Just astonishing. But I did good. For me, I did good. And again, this is one of those slow is better than couch, I'm 64 and I can run 3 miles. I'm pretty happy. I have to keep saying that because I see these 80-year-olds who are running half marathons. Here's the difference. Right now, I don't want to do that. It takes a lot of training time to do that. Maybe when I retire in 3 years, I'll go back to half marathons. But right now, no. So the Monster Dash is behind us, and that was a great success. And you can see my upcoming race. As I record this, I'm about 13 days out from the Santa Clarita Marathon 5K. I don't believe Junior is signed up for that to run it with me. And then, of course, I have to get myself over to our park, Central Park, and try to run the really rather challenging trail for the turkey trot. I have a feeling I will not come home from that covered in glory, but that's Thanksgiving Day. And you can see the other races that I have upcoming. I'm going to skip to something I really like because I'm on the racing subject. Something I really like is A Better World Running. This is the company that hosted this race. I have run with them off and on for the last, since about 2013. And they've always run a good race. And their whole thing is keep it cheap. So race is now 5Ks, which used to be, when I started running in the 80s, $5 to run. And that was a bit of a challenge for me. And then they rapidly went to $20 because they got the idea of adding shirts. Then they added medals. Okay, now your average 5K is at least $50. That is a lot to pay. You get a medal and a shirt. They used to give you goodie bags with all sorts of freebies. Now they don't. They give you an electronic goodie bag. They give you a link that has discounts. Whoopee. However, the reason a good race is worth that sometimes is the experience can be outstanding. The way the Disney races were when I ran them back in like 2015. The experience of the Disneyland races was extraordinarily good. I have to admit it. They were ridiculously overpriced, but they were really fantastic. Now I can't afford them. You have to pay like $300 just to get on the list to get a chance to run the 5K, unless you're running it for a charity, and I'm not doing the fundraising thing. I did that all through school. Don't want to do it now that way. Not that way, at least. Okay. A Better World Running is dedicated to keeping it cheap. You run, you get a medal. The medal is not what I'd call extraordinarily crafted. It's a good enough medal. You know, it's an inexpensive medal. It's pretty. It says what it should. Ours had a cute little Monster Dash logo on it. Very cute. And they time you. And they get permits for the course and everything else, which is part of where that money is going to. Okay, this time we got to the race course, the park, where it started. The restrooms were not open. We were getting off at 7:30 on the race. The restrooms did not open till 7:22. There were several of us really suffering for that. And I said to one of the people who knew the organizers, I said, they really need to write to the Park Service and say, this isn't right. We paid for those restrooms to be opened. And they didn't open until 8 minutes before. The sun was well up at that time. You know, the sun was coming up at like 7:02 a.m. And those restrooms should have been opened at sunrise, which is how the park system works. So you could see Better World set this up so we'd have half an hour to do things like line up for the restroom. So I said, you know, they really need to fix that. This woman got all bent out of shape over it. But I said, no, you know, they run a good race, but they're paying for this. They're paying for a permit to run out of this park, to organize it here and set up their tables and stuff here. Okay. So we went off, we did the race. And before the race, they gave us a speech. And the speech was very interesting because it really was about their philosophy as a company, because they're trying to keep the races cheap. They're trying to use the races to donate as a group to a charity every time. And they're trying to keep it friendly. And so they don't get the trail closed for them because they're not paying a huge amount to the city, but they're paying for a permit for the race. They can hang signage, they can chalk the ground, that sort of thing. And the other sad thing was, they said, they've been running their races. They used to run them down in Woodley Park by Lake Balboa in the San Fernando Valley. They stopped because that started getting expensive. They started running them on the beach in Santa Monica and Long Beach. Well, now they have poachers. They have companies that are not buying the permit and that are just organizing a race, collecting a lot of money from the racers and not buying permits and just saying, cut loose, run on the beach. And they're also using Better World's strategies, their mailing list, their logos and everything. It's really horrifying. They're kind of pirating. So Better World is moving itself around, and so they've moved up to Valencia, which is very close to me. So I'm really happy about that. They've got a whole bunch of races, and they're considering just stopping the Santa Monica and Long Beach races because they're getting run over by pirate companies. And I want to thank them because, first of all, they're cheap, they're ethical. They used to say for like $10 extra you could get a shirt. They stopped doing that. What I did instead, I bought my own shirt. I bought a Halloween themed shirt. Actually, it's a black shirt with a phoenix rising on it because I liked it. Halloweenish? Yeah, why not? Coming back from the dead works for me. Living forever Zombie birds. Okay. But at any rate, I'm really grateful to them because they keep it cheap. They run it ethically. They really do try to donate. So then I wrote to them after the race and I said, you guys did a really great job. But I would like to tell you they didn't open the restrooms till 7:20. I really would appreciate it if you would write to the city of Valencia and say, what was that about? We paid money for this. And also, when I got to the end of the race, they always have energy bars and gel and drinks, powders, electrolyte powders for your drinks. Not a single thing was edible for me as a diabetic. Every single one of them had sugar. So I just wrote in a nice letter, I said, could you consider putting one type of fizzy drink out there for those of us who can't have sugar? I got a really nice letter back, and they have a policy, if you sign up for 3 races, you get the 4th race free. I have signed up for 3 races. But I got a nice letter back from one of their founders, Michelle, and it was so nice. And she said, what a great letter. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had a good experience. Of course, we will look for one sugar-free thing. We hadn't thought about that. What a great idea. And then said, we did work with the city on this. They told us it would be open at sunrise, and they did not keep their end of the deal. We will contact them, and you get another free race. I wrote back and said, you guys are a class act, and frankly, I don't need another free race. I just want the races you run, the way you run them. And she said, well, we might go back to Woodley Park. And I said, I hope not, because this is much closer to me. She was very amused by that. So, something I really like, it's Better World Running. If you're running in Southern California, you should be looking at their races. They're doing the ethical. They're doing it fair. They're working fairly with permits. They're trying to give you a good run for a good price. I do wish they'd offer a shirt, but frankly, I'm just as happy going to T-Turtle and buying a suitably themed shirt for $12 and wearing it afterwards to remember the race by. Well, I'm taking a long time. Well, this is most of the blather, in case you're wondering. So, in the fluffy books, the new Verity Lark is out. Yay, Lynn Messina. It's called A Lark's Release. It downloaded all by itself because I had pre-ordered it last Friday. So there's another one. I am behind on that book, and I have one more Flavia Albia book after Fatal Legacy, which I'm still plowing through really slowly, although it's starting to make a lot more sense. At night, I did finish listening to The Talisman Ring by Georgette Heyer. Turns out her name is pronounced Hare. It used to be Higher, but they changed it in the Second World War, she and her husband, because they didn't want to be mistaken for Germans. At any rate, Georgette Heyer. I'm American. She's dead. Nobody cares. I started The Reluctant Widow. Now, The Talisman Ring is a send-up of the extreme romances that were popular in the Regency. And it's set more in the late 18th century, I believe 1793. In The Reluctant Widow, which I just picked at random from her books, it was the book that came up in my Amazon list, which I already own an Amazon copy, so I just went and got the Audible. The Reluctant Widow is a send-up of the kind of gothic drama. And again, it's very reminiscent of Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. It is not quite atmospheric where I am, but I have a feeling we're heading there. I have a feeling that the dead man's house, the widow, her late husband, is about to become the gothic manse that you require. At any rate, so it's like Heyer, unlike Jane Austen, Heyer sort of separates those extreme romances into the crazy foreigners doing crazy things and extreme plots of murder by people who shouldn't have to do it. And she separates that from the story where you're in the kind of dangerous building. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go read Northanger Abbey and The Castle of Otranto to understand Northanger Abbey, and you'll get it, and you'll have a lot of fun. Meanwhile, in Put a Lid on It, coffee season is upon us. Yes, we get to the race. We got up at 5 a.m. to get to this race yesterday. We finish, and I said, okay, it's time for the celebration breakfast. We went out to our local Eggs and Things. Those of you who've gone to CFR 9 and or CFR 10 will remember Eggs and Things. the scene of the epic Sunday brunches. And we went to Eggs and Things. And you can see at the top of the show notes the picture of our feast. You can tell which is mine because it's all protein and my son's is all carb. This, my friends, is the difference between someone who is keto, me, and someone who is not. That is someone who is driven by fat and to a lesser extent protein versus someone who is driven by carbs. I have nothing against either option, although obviously as a diabetic I don't have the carb choice anymore. But it is a very funny contrast. We had a fabulous breakfast. My son is always asking for permission with my husband, like, can I have coffee? Because we don't want him to get all wired up and stuff. So anyway, he changed his clothes in the restroom of the restaurant, and I sat down and I ordered us both coffee because I thought he would get a big thrill out of that. He came back and his eyes bugged out of his head, and he said, what is that? And I said, that's coffee. I thought you'd want coffee. So we swilled coffee. Holy crow, we needed to. We were both passing out. He was napping in the car on the way home. I was trying not to nap at the wheel. I came home yesterday and crawled into a hot bathtub. I had like 3 cups of coffee, and I was still passing out all day yesterday. Had a great night's sleep last night. It is coffee season. If you must. I can't drink a lot of it. First of all, if you didn't know this, caffeine drives up your sugar, drives up your blood sugar. So I can't drink a lot of it. But I must say, I enjoyed that coffee, and it wasn't particularly spectacular coffee. It was good enough. So in the show notes, I have given you a link to Keto Coffee. This is an instant coffee powder, and I like this particular brand because it comes in larger packages, and you can spoon it, if you must, into your coffee, that you heat the water in your Keurig, but you don't use those little tiny K-cups that are just basically polluting the environment by having lots of waste for landfills. So this Keto Coffee at least comes in a bigger canister. That's the good news. The bad news, they only fill the canister like maybe a third to a half. This really annoys me. You're paying for this big tall canister. It's not filled, but it does have MCT oil in it. It has some heavy cream in it. It's got all the good things in it. I don't know if it's got sweetener, but it's keto, so it doesn't have sugar in it. No sugar alcohols. So that is a link to my favorite keto coffee. Or you can be brave. You can just get a big old can of Folgers instant coffee, as big a can as they will sell you. But again, it's not as biodegradable. But there you go. There's my favorite keto coffee, because coffee season is upon us. Suddenly in the morning, it's true, I want to drink something hot, not my usual ice-cold protein shake. In the blather, there's not much to say except it is time to head for Thanksgiving. Now, my next race is and you can see my little countdown calendar there, is the Santa Clarita Marathon 5K. But Thanksgiving is coming, and so I've got a countdown to the Turkey Trot, which is on Thanksgiving Day, which lets me know that we have 1 month and 0 days and 20 hours at the time I saved that image. And so we are a month away from Thanksgiving vacation. That is 4 days off, in which I start prepping for the larger Romuel vacation, getting my crafts lined up for what I'm going to be doing over Romuel. I'm really looking forward to that staycation, to cleaning things out and trying to further declutter ourselves and getting the crafts really going. So it's exciting. By Romuel, I'm really hoping to have my skirts done and be working more in a dedicated way to the scrap quilts and other projects, including finishing sweaters. Hello. So that's it. I am shoulder to the wheel and I am heading for Thanksgiving. Otherwise, under that, you can see my link tree. You can see the community resources, all of the links for various products, books, etc. that I have assembled over the years in the podcast notes. And those will take you to links in our Ravelry group, of course. And we are still carrying the list of our CFR 10 sponsors because I'm very grateful to them. You can find links to all of them in the show notes. And finally, we get to the calendar. The first part of my calendar is, of course, the local groups in the Santa Clarita Valley that are crafting groups, including the Santa Clarita Valley Free Craft Exchange. All of these are on Facebook. I don't have links. They all are Facebook groups. Then there's my calendar, and you can see I'm heading towards, as I've said like 5 times now, the 5K for the Santa Clarita Marathon on November 10th. And of course, Thanksgiving, November 28th and onward, including the Turkey Trot on November 28th. Romule, yay! Please, please. December 21st through January 1st or thereabouts. The Jingle Jog is also on December 21st, my first day off. That'll be up in Palmdale. Looking forward to that. That's going to be cold, baby. Have to see if I can assemble some costume for that. And then we have the races in 2025. The Cupid Dash, you can sort of guess. That's February around the 14th. That's the 16th. The Mardi Gras Madness 5K in February. The Rock and Shamrock, March 16th. The Sugar Daddy 5K, June 14th. And then, what you really care about, CFR 11. That is CFR 2025. That will be October 11th, 2025. Got to get down to the planning. Minerva gets the last word. I was bathing yesterday, and I looked up. She's on the side of the bathtub. She likes to accompany me when I take long baths. She gets on those towels on the side of the bathtub that between the tub and the window, so she can watch the dogs outside. She will frequently play with them through the glass. She will chirp at any birds she sees. But when I looked over, I was bathing myself with towel and soap and washcloth, and I looked over, she was bathing herself. You can see her washing her face. Her little tongue is out. So Minerva gets the last word, and the last word is, you want to take a bath? Okay, I don't understand it, but I love you so much, I'll bathe with you. And I have to tell you, that's one of those great feline compliments when you're bathing and you realize your cat is doing it with you. Minerva, of course, is doing that because she understands that as a family, we are our own little community. And when you take care of the community, you are taking care of the individual within the community. Having said that, please go do all the things you need to do for your health this winter. And most of all, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.